Hello, Franklin County. It's 3 o'clock. It's Wednesday. And so you know what time it is. It's time for a brotherly conversation about health, wealth, and race right here in Franklin County. Today, I got two very special guests with me, my colleagues, my friends. Well, at least one of them is my friend. During football season, one of them is not so much my friend. The other one is always my friend. I'll let you all out there guess which one that is. Um, but I'm excited to have two of my very good friends on the show with me today. And what's interesting, I'll say this before we open up here. When I was on city council, there were seven of us. I was in the legislature. There were 133 count the Republicans. I mean the Senate. And I was what else did I do? Oh, I was state treasurer. It was just me, but you had other statewide office holders. But there's no experience like working with three of you. It is a unique experience because it's like living with two other people. Isn't it? It's like living with your whole lives are around these other two people. So when you're on city council, it's different because you get factions and different people that kind of that don't work with his three of y'all. That could be a rough way to go. And so you get very close with your colleagues. I would say that you get to know a lot about them. um, uh, you know I think with the three of us, we are very different people in many ways, in that we have different experiences, we come from different backgrounds, and we process things differently. But that's what makes us so effective and strong, I think. That we are like a three-headed monster here. That at the end of the day, we add different pieces from our own perspective to the pie, if you will. But at the end of the day, it comes out just lovely because of all of those different ingredients. And so it's just been a pleasure serving in my first term as a county commissioner. I'm still the junior commissioner, everybody. So they teach me something every day. It's been a good experience. But now let's shift over to my colleagues. I'm so glad to have you two on here. Marilyn, Commissioner Brown is the star of Zoom because she's always sharp. She's always on camera. It could be Zoom in at 7 a.m. and she would be on camera, sharp. The house is all nice in the background and everything. Occasionally we'll see her husband walk in, get some from the refrigerator or something like that. But otherwise, her scene is perfectly set up. And Commissioner O'Grady, he's the type that you never know what you're going to get with his background for the day. I mean, he may be outside, he may be in the house, he may be in the car, he may be on the roof. You just never know where he's going to be and what he's going to be doing.
I'm never on the roof. I'm never on the roof.
Yeah, he keeps us guessing, he keeps us guessing. And me, I'm the stealth guy, like I come on camera, then I'm off. I come on, then I'm off. You just never know.
Sideways.
Sometimes sideways, yeah, I just, all those things. Well, we got a lot to talk about. We've got folks who are logging on right now as we speak, Facebook. And I'm going to ask you guys what I've asked all of my guests as the very first question. 2020 has been a hell of a year for all of us. And while we've been in the grind together, the three of us, if there was, we started off with the pandemic. Then we had the George Floyd tragedy and death. Then we had, months of unrest and a little bit of chaos there. Then we had a shutdown before that. So we just had so much going on. And here we are in October. We still don't know when the vaccine is going to come out. We still don't know what the distribution will be. We still don't know when the economy bottom is. And there's so much sort of unanswered questions. But if there was one word that you would use to describe 2020, what would that one word be? And we'll start with Commissioner O'Grady.
One word to describe 2020.
Yeah, one word.
Bizarre.
Bizarre. And that's a word we haven't gotten. Okay, bizarre. All right. Commissioner Brown, what do you think? What's your one word?
The first thing that comes to my mind is chaos.
That's a word that I would use for sure. Yeah, those are good words. And honestly, those are words that others haven't used. I mean, we've heard exhausted, tired, angry, anxiety, explosive. I mean, just so many different words, but we haven't heard bizarre and we haven't heard chaos. And so I
Really?
think those are legitimate. No, no,
Well,
not at all.
the reason I say bizarre is simply because we've been through so much. As a county commissioner, we all have our times and our moments, right? We all have our situations that we go through. We have our ups and downs. We have our different issues that we deal with in the community. We have our issues that we deal with in the courthouse. There's so many different ups and downs and so many different things that we deal with. But this year has just been unlike anything I've ever seen before. It's been like the Twilight Zone. I mean, every time we think we've seen something that's unique and different that we've never seen before, then all of a sudden we get something new, whether it's something that we're dealing with at the courthouse or it's something out of Washington. There's just been so many new layers to 2020. It's the conversation that we had the other day with the governor and the lieutenant governor when we were talking about preparing for potential unrest around the election. And the lieutenant governor and the governor were giving us their thoughts on it, and they said, and Lieutenant Governor Husted kept saying, and typically this happens, and typically that happens, and typically this happens. And I just turned around and I said, Lieutenant Governor, that's okay, but in 2020, nothing typical has happened.
Yeah.
Nothing typical has happened this year. So
No.
I mean, and Commissioner Brown, you said chaos. I mean,
Yeah.
that kind of goes with bizarre, though, when you think about it. I mean, they actually kind of go hand in hand, because they just can. So what's your thinking behind that word?
I think chaos to me means that anything that could happen has happened, and it's all, anything you could dream of, we've had it. And it's been not one thing at a time, it's so many things that have occurred that we've had to deal with both professionally and personally in our own situations at home, with our family members, with school kids that you have, that we've all experienced every gamut of thing that you could imagine. We've had it.
Yeah.
At the courthouse, in the community, nationally, locally, it's happened. And to me, it's chaotic. At the same time, we've managed to get an awful lot of good work done on behalf of our residents. When you think about it, we've done an awful lot of good work.
Oh, I think she might have froze up a little bit.
But it's been fun.
You're freezing up a little bit there, but I think,
Am I?
yeah, just a little bit, keeps coming out. But I think your point though is, is taken very well. This everything has happened, and as leaders, we have to sort of think through how we respond, not just to the here and now, but going forward. And so when I think of one of our greatest challenges is, this is also a census year, and, the data to which we collect the census information, the way it's used, we make literally hundreds of decisions on. So can you both just talk to the public a little bit about just how important the census is, and maybe give one example of where something that you're passionate about, how we use that data to really address an issue, because I know you both have real issues that you've championed throughout the years, throughout your careers, and as I know them, I'll let you talk about them, but as I know them, they're both data centered, and data oriented around who lives here. So Commissioner Brown, why don't you start off? What talk about the census, and maybe share with the public just how critical it is.
Census data is used to determine financial awards to communities. And as we look at the number of people that respond to the census, it relates to the amount of money that goes to our social services.
Mhm.
In particular, it goes to, if we look at just one agency, our senior services, that money gets determined by the number of people that respond to the census. And those federal allocations are determined by the number of people that respond to the
Yeah.
census. And that's just one agency. And all of our agencies are dependent on how many people respond to the census. And that's critical.
It is. It is. I mean, and it's really one of those things where even that, then there's 5 other things that are connected to that you're going to use data for too. I know Commissioner Grady has been very much in the trenches around food insecurity and access to nutritional foods for families across Central Ohio. But Commissioner O'Grady, I mean, don't you think? I mean, tell us about how census data is factored in when we think about food insecurity, where we're building things or where we are giving food out. Before you respond, let me just give a quick shout out to Dr. Jean Harris, who's watching us, Lavelle Miller, Diamond Lula, Meredith Lawson Rowe, Reynoldsburg City Council. Thanks so much for watching again, Meredith, council member. Jonathan Bentley, one of my every week members. So thanks so much for joining us, Jonathan. Michelle Leona, Bill Dawson, and State Representative Erica Crawley. Give a shout out, special shout out to Erica Crawley. She had an event happen this week. I'm not going to call her out in public. I'm just going to say, I hope you did well. I can't wait to know how you're feeling about it. And I'm looking forward to celebrating the great results. So good to see you join us. But Commissioner O'Grady, talk about food insecurity in the census, maybe.
Sure. So the food insecurity issue is a big issue in Central Ohio. We have so many families that are in need, and so many families that are going without. This is something we've been working on the entire time I've been on the board. Commissioner Brown this is an issue that was something that was near and dear to her before I became a county commissioner. And by the way, I know you're the junior member of the Board of Commissioners, Kevin, but Marilyn's the senior member of the Board of Commissioners. So just saying.
Definitely. No question about that.
I'm the middle child. Anyway, so all the work that we've been doing on the local food or the Columbus Franklin County food action plan, and it's work that we've been doing around everything from food insecurity to food manufacturing to food production to food distribution, all across the gamut of the entire food world. And so but when families go without, these census dollars can be very helpful, bringing back federal dollars back into the community.
Yeah.
that can always continue to help with things like SNAP dollars and other dollars that are going to be helpful to making sure that kids aren't going to bed at night hungry, so that kids are being fed in school when they get to school, and being fed in the summertime, kids that are being fed. We were all just at St. Stephen's yesterday.
That's right.
Not only the NASA packets with COSI, we're also distributing Children's Hunger Alliance meals, breakfast and lunch meals to families as they drove up to receive all that stuff. And so these are the types of things that these federal dollars can help to fund if we make sure that we capitalize on the census. And so, and if we don't capitalize on the census, there's those are dollars that we lose out on. And so we need to continue to do the best we can through the end of the month to make sure that we're counting as many folks as possible.
I mean, that is really just no other way to say it.
Did you know that program? Oh, I'm sorry.
No, go right ahead, Commissioner.
That program.
She froze up.
Uh-oh. You're freezing up again, Commissioner. Oh no. All right, we'll wait till she unfreezes. Commissioner Hope.
No, go ahead.
You had frozen up. I think you're back now. I think you're back.
We know that the program at St. Stephen's
is the one that COSI is doing with the Hunger Alliance is the only one in the country.
That's
That
awesome.
doesn't surprise me. That doesn't surprise
It's
me.
awesome. You know, it's awesome that we're the only one in the country, but it would be great if we could, if other communities could have it as well.
Yeah, and NASA worked with us on this too. NASA, you know, helped with COSI to create these science packets for kids to utilize and have a little fun. But it's the census stuff that really allows us to even do that. You know, to even know where there may be pockets of kids in our community that are not getting access to science, math, and technology, engineering and technology kinds of activities and things. And so we're able to deploy those resources in that zip code, knowing that that may be a deficit in terms of access. And so that's how we're able to do things like that. But let me just, for the people who are watching, you know, there's still time to take your census. You can go to my2020census.gov. That's my2020census.gov. Or if you don't have access to the internet, you can call 844-330-2020. That's 844-330-2020. Think about it, $1,200 per person per year. And if they look at the state of Ohio, we get $34 billion that come to us because of our census data. And so everybody matters, everyone counts. And if 2020 has been the kind of year that you think is bizarre or chaotic, or I've got words that came in online like unpredictable, strange, educational, unbelievable. Well, if you feel that way, the way that we can act as a community, the way we can respond is to start with filling out our census. It's only 10 questions and takes a couple minutes. I know my colleague. When did you fill out yours, John?
You know what? I didn't get a chance to. The first day that it was ready to go, my wife did it before I even got a chance. It's easy. I was
but did she count you though? Did she count you on the form, or did she exclude you?
She rarely counted. Oh yes, she counted me. But it's so easy to do. I mean, I didn't even. I went upstairs. I came back down. She had it done already. It's so easy to. Don't be afraid of it. It's get online. What is it? My2020census.com.
Yep.
It's no time. It takes no time to get it done.
Absolutely.
It's very easy.
Marilyn, so did you do yours, Marilyn? And
Absolutely.
when did you do it? Did you do it like the first week it came in?
Early on, like the first day it was out, we did it.
See, I'm gonna tell you the truth. It was probably like a week and a half in, and I'm the chairman of the Complete Count, Central Ohio. And it was like, I was like, oh, I gotta do mine. It was like a week into the census, and I was like,
we're
that's
nerds.
so bad. Yeah, you guys are. Yeah, that's true. That's true. Yeah, I'm the cool commissioner, and they're the nerd commissioner. That is correct, no doubt. No, Marilyn, you kind of go both. You're kind of, but John's definitely on the other side of that.
You're a Steelers fan, for God's sake. Nothing cool about that.
Why do you have to call me out in public here like that? I didn't say that to the public. Yeah, you didn't have to say that. You had to put me out there. Well, I won't even go there. So we got so much to talk about. And so we got all these folks watching. They want to hear some issues. Let's dig right into some that I know are serious and have been very interesting points of discussion. Let's talk about race in Franklin County. We've been at the forefront of this issue since we started this work in 2018, when we started peeling back our own layers to look at Franklin County and figure out what we can do around poverty. And when we peel back the layers, all we could see were these elements of race. But beyond that, talk about it from your perspective. What have you learned in the last couple of years about race that maybe you didn't know? And two, where do we go from here? We've got our plan and we've got our work we're doing, but as a community, we've got some healing to do, with the unrest, and there is division in certain places. Where do we go from here, and what do we need to do? Who wants to take that one first? Well, so what have you learned? What have you learned, and where do we go?
I'll do it. Race has always been an issue, and this community has never really dealt with it until now. It's time. It's past time. We continually talk about it and work on it. It's time to really focus all of our attention in this community on dealing with racial issues and really start working together as a community to not only talk about race and deal with race as an issue, we need to make a commitment to really getting this community to focus on all of the things that haven't happened. You can't just say, well, we're not going to be racist anymore. You have to affirmatively do things to change patterns, long-standing patterns of racial discrimination in housing, racial discriminations in employment. Can't do that anymore, and it goes away. You have to actually affirmatively make changes and do things on a daily basis to make things better.
And be committed to it. I mean, I really feel like I'm blessed to have two colleagues that have, I can't wait to see our own minority participation numbers, to really take a look back and see just how much we've invested in, putting a rubber to the road, in putting our sort of money where our mouth is. And I think we've done that. And we're getting better at it. I mean, we're not perfect, but we're getting better at it. And I'm just grateful to work with two people that are really committed to it. John, what have you learned, and where do we go from here?
Well, I've learned that there's a lot more people in this world that are unabashed racist than I thought there were. I've learned that.
Wow.
I've learned. Oh, I have. I mean, it's become evident this year, last year, the last couple of years, it's become evident to me that there's just people that just aren't afraid of it. And I've also learned, though, that there are people who don't understand or don't recognize systemic racism. Once you point it out to them, there are people who start to understand it a little bit better. But I've also learned and understood that there's a lot of people who are have really become much more vocal advocates than I thought there would be. And there's a real passion, especially in this community, for this conversation now. And I wasn't sure that I expected that 2 years ago when we started talking about it. When we first started talking about it, I thought that either people were going to bury their heads in the sand or they were going to give us pushback. And I think there's a lot more people in this community ready and willing to have this conversation than I thought there was going to be. So I think that's been a little eye-opening for me. The other thing that I've interestingly learned is, as we've had conversations with folks about the need for racial equity training, there has been, I think, an acceptance and a willingness for folks to be participatory in that. I had a conversation with our county administrator, Ken Wilson, the other night. I texted him and he called me late because I think he liked the idea so much. But we've been reading in the local news recently over the last 3 or 4 weeks about teachers in our suburban school districts that have been advocates for students that face this issue, and the fact that they've been disciplined. And then in one school district, there was an inequity in the discipline between school administrators. And so I said, hey, I think it'd be an interesting thing for us to partner with ESCCO, the Educational Service Center of Central Ohio, to see if we can't provide work with them to partner to provide racial equity training for these school districts, because I think that'd be a great place. There are folks obviously in those school districts who need racial equity training or would be very accepting of racial equity training. They either need it or they'd be accepting of it, but one of the two. I think Ken really liked that idea, and I think that that's would be an interesting place to go for that, because I think that the school administrators in places like Dublin and Pickerington and Hilliard and Grove City and Reynoldsburg and Anna and Westerville and Worthington are places where racial equity training would do a lot of really great, would be a really great place to start all those places, especially from what we've seen in the news recently. So
Well, I love that perspective, that you both brought, because, being, let me give you my own personal experience with the two of you, where I just maybe want to share with the public, when I was running for this seat as a commissioner, I felt that the both of you supported me very strong. And this is not a political conversation for those who are, this is a technical conversation. We'll call it that. But when I was running, I believe that you supported me because you felt that I brought something to the table, that I was highly qualified, and that you could work with me in a productive way on behalf of Franklin County. Never once did either of the two of you say, well, we want to make history with the first Black commissioner, you know, and it just was that I happened to be Black. But I think you also valued being a part of helping have the first Black commissioner and breaking that sort of ceiling, if you will. And that to me is the idea way it should go. Because what happens is, I always felt that sometimes when these candidates will say, I want an opponent that'll be a woman, or I want an opponent that'll be Black, it diminishes their credibility because, yes, you might want that. But the reality is, first and foremost, you want someone qualified that is valued and brings something to the table. And that's how I felt you all treated me. And that's how I felt y'all embraced me. But I really felt that you did value being a part of, breaking that ceiling for African Americans too. And so to me in this conversation, I feel like we've had that kind of growth. So when John was talking about people who have been more vocal advocates, that's what I see. I see folks, when I was, and tell me about your experiences, when I was out there at some of the protests with Congresswoman Beatty and President Shannon Hardin, I got to tell you, I saw as many white people out there as I did Black people, and that's something different, because in the past, I remember, I always think of the Rodney King riots back in '92, and I felt that while I felt there were other people who didn't like what they saw and were frustrated by what they saw, the unrest you saw was mostly Black people. This year in 2020, there has been as many white people, I feel like, out there marching, protesting, and demonstrating their perspective as there has been Black people. And that to me is a change in not just American culture, but even Franklin County culture. You agree? Agree, disagree?
I would agree. Absolutely. I think it's different, but I would go back to my experience in Greater Cleveland in the late 80s. I was doing a lot of racial equity work. And I couldn't believe we were needing to do this work back then. And, coming forward to.
Man, you're freezing up, which I really want to hear what you're saying.
Yeah.
Oh,
now, we have somebody doing work next door, and it's causing.
Yeah, because I really want to hear what you're saying. Can you try it again, maybe?
You were talking about doing racial equity work in Cleveland back in the late 80s, I think.
I was doing racial equity training in the late 80s in Greater Cleveland, and I thought it was awful that we had to do that kind of work back then, and teach CEOs and religious leaders in Cleveland back then about the need to do affirmative marketing and affirmative racial equity work in the schools and things that we're talking about now. And I thought, how could then? And we now are doing it now, and I can't believe we have to do it now. And it's unbelievable to me. We've made progress, and yet we haven't made as much progress as I would have hoped. Yeah. But I'm so glad this community is willing to come forward now and start working on these issues.
Yeah. John, you're gonna add something there?
Well, the it's a whole different world these days than back. I mean, I grew up with parents that had that had grown up in the 20s, 30s, 40s, and were a product of a different time, and so I grew up at a time after Martin Luther King, and I grew up with brothers and sisters who grew up in a different era, and so we raise our children in a different era. And so, when I think back to the world that we all grew up in, and what we learned and what we experienced. I mean, I grew up in the days of Archie Bunker, and so now what the world that we're raising our children in today, we're part of me, frustrated with the aspect of the idea that there's always going to be that element out there that the president taps into, and there's always going to be that out there, and it frustrates me to no end, which makes my wife and I do everything we can to raise our kids in a 180-degree different way, and make sure that they understand that that's wrong, and that that there's a different world, and so when you ran for you mentioned when you ran for commissioner in 2016, we just wanted the right person for the job. I know I did. I know that's what Marilyn wanted, and so that wasn't part of the consideration. I had been having conversations with former Mayor Coleman and with Congresswoman Beatty for a long time about the need for having more African American candidates running for countywide office, but nobody in particular, no office in particular, no person in particular. Just the idea that there needed to be more opportunities, that there needed to be, that there needed to be more and better candidates across the board, and that this was Franklin County, and that we needed to be a leader across the board in every way. And so I had those conversations, but I had never had conversations about anybody in particular until it came time for you to run. And then I was just trying to recruit, if you recall, I was just trying to recruit you to run for office because we needed you to run. We needed you to be the candidate because you were the right candidate. It didn't have anything to do with the fact that you were African American. It was with the fact that we needed you to run for the office because you were the right candidate at the time. And so, we needed to form a partnership. We needed to have this. We needed to have the ability to have this, a collegial fit.
And we've been productive. I think from all, I'm not grading myself or even grading you, but the feedback I hear from folks, that has been that, you all have been a productive group of commissioners.
Yes.
When I ran for commissioner the first time, and Marilyn knows this, we talked about it, and I think that I could say this to the public that's listening. I said when we have disagreements, nobody should ever know off the 26th floor of our building.
Right.
And I don't think they do now. And
right.
Oh, by the way, to the general public that's listening to Marilyn and Kevin and I don't always agree on things.
No, we don't.
Especially not the Pittsburgh Steelers. But we don't always we don't always agree on every public policy issue. We don't always agree on every public policy issue that comes before the Board of County Commissioners. We have our disagreements. We have our disagreements often, but we figure things out. We we have 2-1 votes on a regular basis. Well, I don't want to say on a regular basis, but we have them.
We have them. We have them. Yeah.
We have them, but we also have times when Marilyn and Kevin agree on something, and I just say, well, I'm either going to vote with them or I'm going to vote against them, and I have to make a decision, or the other way around. Kevin and I agree. That happens all the time. But the point is, nobody off the 26th floor needs to know when we're not in agreement with each other, other than maybe the staff. Nobody needs to know when we're fighting and bickering with each other. That's
Right.
good public policy. That's not good. That's not good for, that's just, I mean, we need to work in collaboration with each other. And that's
Yeah.
and that
And the
wasn't
other
all.
part, I'd add too, I think there's an element of trust, that we have. You
Yeah.
have to be able to trust that if the other two feel a certain way, that, it's not the end of the world. It's just, we just disagree on something. And, I was being briefed on something today and I said, look, here's how I feel. But if John and Marilyn, if they're on the other end, it's not the end of the world, And so, and I think that's, and when I say that dynamic of three is a very delicate dynamic, and it really takes the right three to make this work in a good way. And I've heard stories about the different combination of commissioners over the years, and just how that worked since I've been to county. And I really think we've got a good rapport, and we have different skill sets and different perspectives that make it great. Even on this racial issue, I was telling somebody the other day, I said, I think with Marilyn, your Jewish background, and John's Irish background, there is a very good natural sense of understanding about discrimination. And so you don't have to, you're not convincing anyone about, you're just talking about how do we get from here to there, and I think that's just a difference, I think it's a difference. And I think folks would, because I'll share this one story, and I'd love to hear your feedback. I was on a call with CCAO, and there was a commissioner from Lake County, and the commissioner got on, and he said, "Were you on that call? Were you on that call?"
No, not if if I was on that call, I'd have torn this guy.
Well, so yeah, I know you would have. I know you would. So the commissioner says he doesn't think racism exists. He said that, especially not. He says in Lake County, there is no racism. We have abolished it. It does not exist.
I know, like,
you would have to. I know, right? I said, Ohio, and I said, and so he says, yeah, and he just gets offended when people say that we've got to do all these things. And I'm going to tell you, and one of the things that just warmed my heart, and I know John and Marilyn, if you were there, you would have done this, but Pete Gherkin lit into him. Pete Gherkin is a commissioner from Lucas County, everyone, that's Toledo. And he lit into him something. He's a white guy, white commissioner, and he lit into this other white commissioner from Lake County and said, that is absurd and ridiculous. And I mean, and then he just pounded into him. And so I think as the one black commissioner on the call, everybody's looking at me like, well, aren't you going to say something? I was like, well, I don't think I need to. I said, it's always better when a Pete Gherkin, a John O'Grady, or Marilyn Brown can say it, and I don't have to, because what I'm going to say. And so, it was great that Pete stepped in, and Pete hammered that guy. I mean, he absolutely hammered him to the point where I was just like, I don't have anything to add to that. As the one black guy on the call, I was just like, yeah, Pete said it all, so.
My staff that call, because I couldn't be. I don't remember. I had a conflict and I couldn't be on the call, but my staff was on that call, and they texted me, and they first and foremost they said, Pete Gherkin just laid this guy out. And the guy, by the way, former member of the legislature, the county commissioner from Lake County, is a former member of the legislature, and he has a reputation of being this kind of an idiot in the legislature as well. And
I served with him. I was on a committee with him. So
And I said, who else was on the call? Did nobody else say anything? They said, oh no, Commissioner Boyce was on the call. And I went, oh man, what did Kevin say? And they said, you were very diplomatic in the way you handled yourself.
Because I felt like, Pete, we need more of that. If Pete hadn't said anything, I would have hammered him. But because Pete said that, it allowed me to not have to go off and be all emotional about it, and I could zero in on facts. I mean, he was saying things like the reason why the criminal justice numbers are disparate to black people is because black people commit more crimes. I mean, this is exactly what he said. That's why there are more black people in prison, because they commit more crimes. And one of my producer, Gail's over looking at me like, did he really say that? Yes, he did. So my point,
we're not using his name on this show right now, because he's Just look up the county commissioner from Lake County, who's a former member of the legislature. You'll know exactly who we're talking about.
I'm so tempted to
Feel
just
to
say it,
you?
say his name, but okay. Go
How
ahead,
does
Commissioner Brown.
it feel to you to have to feel like you have to always be the one to defend
Yeah.
race issues?
I mean, it's exhausting, but I proudly take it on, because if I can educate folks and I can be on that front line of helping to move the needle, I'm okay with that. And I think about, my son and I were talking, he's graduating this year, he's a senior. And we're just talking about next steps, grad school, a job, politics. And what I was trying to say to him was, look, I've done this work in politics, and at some point you're going to have to, take this on, at some point in your life, not now, but some point in your life, you should, but the good news is then hopefully the needle will have moved. You don't have to start where I started, and you can build upon, this conversation. And so it's frustrating and exhausting, quite frankly, but I was grateful for guys like Pete Gherkin, and I'm grateful for guys like John O'Grady and Marilyn Brown, who make it so that I don't have to be the Black guy who has to stand up for, which again, I don't have a problem with, but the conversation gets lost in, well, of course he's going to say that. He's the Black guy. He's going to say we need more Black contracts. Yes, I am going to say that. We need more Black employees. Yes, I am going to say that. We need to enrich. Yes, I am going to say that.
Yeah.
But I think it's stronger and more effective when folks like yourselves are saying, and we learned that in our racial equity training. We learned those are the kind of things we talked about. Hey, I've got some folks chiming in online, and I don't want to overlook their questions that they've got for us. So first of all, let me give a shout out to Orville Johns,
Yes.
D'Amica Withers, Cornell Robinson, Michelle Leona, Mike Shattuck is on watching us today, Jill Patrick Smith, and Marsha White. Thank you all so much for joining us. We got several questions that have come in for you guys that we want to take. So the first question is from Mike Shattuck, and Mike Shattuck says, what's the best way for Franklin County residents to spread the word and the importance of taking the census? We'll go back to the census. What's the best word that everyday citizens can spread the word?
In 2020, social media.
Love it.
Take the census, just do it, and make sure everybody.
For the public who's watching, Marilyn's got some folks working on her house, and so you keep freezing up a little bit there, Marilyn. So yeah, I don't know, just a bad connection. Try it again.
I've been on Zoom with Marilyn Brown 100 times, 200 times this year, and she's never frozen up.
I know, that's the crazy part. I've never seen it freeze up like this.
I'm so frustrated. This makes me so mad. Take the census, go online. It's easy to do. Make sure people know. Just do it.
So while she's freezing up, so I said social media. Post social media as much as you can. But the other thing is, all of us are on these platforms every day. We're on Zoom, we're on WebEx, we're on Microsoft Teams. When you're on one of these things, just mention it. We got what 3 weeks before the end of the census. It's the end of the month. We've got until the end of the month. Every time you're on one of these platforms, every time you're on social media, just mention it. Just remind people, have you done your census? My 2020census.com, my 2020census.gov. I'm sorry, 2020census.gov. It takes 5 minutes to do the census. It is easy. It is easy. It takes 5 minutes.
Yeah, I agree. And I love the idea of just posting it, the link on your social media, or just saying, just take the time, take you 10 seconds to do that. My 2020census.gov and post it on your thing. So don't forget to do your census, folks. We need you. And we're currently at 68%, which is just above our 2010 counts. So if we could get to 70%, we could have really moved the needle in this conversation. And this year, we, Franklin County Board of Commissioners, we put a lot of resources into the census marketing and effort because we know how important it matters. I've got another question from Michelle Leona, who says, how can I get more involved in the community and the Board of Commissioners? Are there committees or meetings that I can observe to be a part of your conversation regularly?
Yeah, absolutely. So she should reach out to the Board of Commissioners through our website, which is franklincountycommissioners.gov, I believe, www.franklincountycommissioners.gov. Eric Janis is our Deputy County Administrator who handles boards and commissions. So she should reach out to the Board of Commissioners at franklincountycommissioners.gov and on our website and give us her information. And if there's something that fits, I'm sure that we can get her involved in something.
Yeah, Commissioner Brown, what do you think? Other ways she can get involved?
She can go on our Zoom meetings on Tuesdays and
That's right.
Thursdays.
Yeah.
Yeah.
9 o'clock Tuesday morning and 9 o'clock on Thursday morning. We're on Zoom. It's posted also on our website, how to be involved in those things.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and certainly, you know, just call our offices. You know, we're always in the community at different events, and certainly you can join us out there. Like Commissioner O'Grady was saying, we were all at St. Stephen's yesterday at different times throughout the day, but passing out lunch and learning kits for the community, and we've sponsored that with COSI, NASA, and St. Stephen's and the Children's Hunger Alliance, and these are the kinds of things that you might not see in the newspaper or see on the news, but they are parts of what we do. So the next question comes in. This is from Jill Patrick Smith, and she says, and this is a good one. This is a good one. She says, explain the difference between commissioners and city council. That's a good one. Who wants to take that first?
So always explaining county government is a difficult task because it's a very large type of thing. So city council members, you have a mayor and city council member. And so it's, there are two different forms of government. The mayor is the executive and city council is the legislative branch. In county government, county commissioners are both. We're the executive and the legislative body at the same time. We, on the other hand, cannot pass laws like city council passes ordinances. Those are considered city laws. We can't do that. We are a product of state government. So we have to follow the Ohio Revised Code. What we pass are called resolutions, which are statements of county policy. So when we pass a resolution, you know, that is, you know, it enacts a contract or it puts us in or enables a contract with an agency or a county government agency or a community partner or whatever. It's a statement of county policy. We then have to enact those resolutions. How's that? That's a beginning of an explanation.
That's pretty good.
I'm gonna let
that's pretty good. I think Marilyn's she's gonna bring it home for us.
I'm going to try.
Yeah.
If you can hear me, I would say we're responsible for the safety net services for our community, as well as for justice, all the courts, as well as law enforcement in the county. But safety net is the county, the biggest amount of money that goes to safety net services.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I mean, oh, go ahead, John.
I was gonna say city government does public services. So they do streets and sewers and police and fire, and county government does human services, like Marilyn said, safety net services, human services. But we also do, like the city does, we do economic development and planning. We do the Department of Aging. We do, you know, and then we have the levy agencies as well. So we have Children's Services, and we have Adam H, and we have developmental disabilities, and then, you know, so we handle a very broad section of human services.
Yeah, I love the way you guys describe it. I usually describe it like this. I say, and you know, in all my time on city council in Columbus, I never got out of that box. You know, I never got to kind of explore. You know, obviously was never mayor. I didn't work I just was on city council, so I have an interesting perspective. But I say, county commissioners are like being mayor of the county, except there are three of us. You know, we really are administrative in function. You know, and we do carry out what I would describe as quality of life activities for our residents. You know, it's human services, it is safety and corrections, it is health, you know, and public health and the different things. And so I say we're like, it's like being mayor of the county, but there are three of us. And then I always add in, and then you take out all of the cities. And so you have to think of it in terms of not Hilliard, not, even though they all fit in Columbus, not Hilliard, not Dublin, not Columbus, but the unincorporated areas is where we really add that real strong value. I said, now, that being said, the people that we serve and all those human services and all that, they're all Columbus, Dublin, Hilliard residents. So we actually do get a lot of those. So that's how I describe it. And I know, the people feel like, oh, that's not being mayor, but it actually, it's so administrative. There's no other way to describe it, and we don't have like in Cleveland and Summit County, where they have a county council and they've got an executive, and they kind of operate like that mayor, council, legislative body dynamic. We're both, as Commissioner O'Grady described. And so it's a unique kind of authority that is set up in the Ohio Revised Code, And then by the way, Michelle or Jill, did you know that counties were around before cities were even formed in Ohio? And so counties are one of the oldest forms of government in the country in terms of local government.
There's also 3,069 counties in the United States. And as far as counties go, the 86 of the 88 counties in Ohio are very unique. The way that we have 3 county commissioners that are elected at large to represent the entire county, that's not normal. It's only done like that in Ohio, Oklahoma, and then in some parts of a few other states.
That I did not know. Okay.
Yeah, most states are set up where county commissioners are elected in districts.
Yeah.
And they represent a district or a part of, so the fact that Kevin and Marilyn and I represent 1.3 million people is very unique. That's the only places that happens where they represent that commissioners or supervisors or whatever they're called around the country represent as many people as we do is in very large places like Los Angeles County or Harris County, Texas, which is Houston.
Here's a little trivial question for you, John. What Democrat in the state of Ohio represents a larger body of people than each of the 3 county commissioners for Franklin County? There's only one.
Sherrod Brown.
You got it. Sherrod Brown. He'd be the only Democrat that represents more people than the Franklin County Commissioners.
Not to bring too much trivia into this, but it's not even trivia or bring too much politics into this. But I'm actually speaking on a Zoom tonight for the vice president running for president, because I'm the highest ranking elected Democrat in Ohio, or no, highest ranking elected Irishman in Ohio, because it's an a rally of Irish Democrats for Biden tonight.
That's awesome. That's awesome, man. That's awesome.
I just happen to be the highest ranking Democrat in Ohio.
Well, look, we got about 7 minutes, and I want to give a shout out to Stacy Burke, Mike Hochran, Keena Smith, Ross Goldsmith, Jim Wolf. I'm going to mess this name up. Ifra Udugan, Daniel Konkin, Jenny Snap, Lamar Peoples, and Rahma Abdul Ali. Thank you so much for joining us today. And Marlise Wicker is also watching. Thanks, Marlise. We got one more question. So it's 3:54. So we've got about 6 minutes. And we got another question that came in from Orville Johns. Right. And Orville, for those who may not know, is the director of the Department of Aging for Franklin County. So thanks, Orville. And of course, he writes to ask about older adults. Fitting. So he says, how do you see older adults contributing positively to the eradication of racism in Franklin County? Great question. And we've got about 6 minutes, so we'll start with you, Commissioner Brown. Hopefully we can get through on your answer without you freezing.
hopefully we can do this. I think older adults, just like everybody else, have a lot to contribute. Their experience, their knowledge, their wisdom, just like everybody else. And they've lived through so much in terms of civil rights era and beyond. And they've got a lot to teach us about what they've gone through. And we have a lot we can learn from listening.
Yeah. Commissioner O'Grady?
I think every culture in the world, every culture, that you can think of, with the exception of maybe our culture here in the United States, treats older adults, older folks with much more respect. We should treat our older residents and our older folks with the kind of respect that every other culture in the world does. I wish I had my parents back. I wish that I could, have the wisdom that my father and my mother always imparted on me. And I hope that I can continue to impart that kind of wisdom on my kids as I get older. And so we should, there's just, the experience of years is like nothing else. And as I get older, I feel like I get better. And, while my body may not say so, my mind
about it.
So,
about it.
I was at the doctor today and he tells me everything's great, but I take that with a grain of salt because I remember when.
You've been through a lot, my friend.
At 56 years old, I'm feeling pretty good, but I feel like but at the same time, I feel like I get better all the time. So our seniors are one of our cherished resources, and we should do all we can. And I know that we do through Warbell's department. They do amazing work in the Department of Aging, and the resources that we have. If you have an aging member of your family at home, and you aren't accessing our department, then you should. There's something there for you. There's something there for the member of your family, and you should reach somebody in our Department of Aging.
I went through that with my grandmother years ago and access resources. And it was just such a tough process because you're already dealing with the emotional element of that family member. And then you're dealing with these financial issues and asset issues and different things. And so the Department of Aging is just a critical resource. And so thanks for that question. And I appreciate the answer. We're going to close out. It's 3:58. We're going to close out on this question. And I think it's so fitting to these two. We've done some real great work on this conversation of racism around giving business opportunities at the county level. How important is that in the equation in terms of hiring a diverse administration and leadership, and then also doing the contracts? I know with the jail we built and the Forensic Science Center we built, we've been very conscientious. How critical is that in terms of eradicating racism, in terms of inclusion in our work and contracting?
Who do you want to go for?
I think Marilyn. Let's go see if we can get why she's not first.
Go ahead, Marilyn.
I think it's critically important, and everything is better when you have diverse opinions, and everything works better the more diversity you have in a project. And that goes for employment, that goes for a project that we're working on. We all are better and stronger when we have more diversity at the table.
No question. I think you're freezing up again. Commissioner O'Grady?
Is it freezing again?
Yeah, you're freezing up again. Sorry about that. Yeah.
As bad as racism is,
Go ahead.
as bad as racism is, it's only made worse when when you don't have economic sustainability. As bad as racism is, if you don't have, it's one thing to treat people inequitably. It's another thing to treat them inequitably financially and not give them the same opportunities. If you aren't, certainly we have made sure in our building projects at the correction center, at the morgue, and the forensic science center, in our building projects, we're making sure that not only do we set a bar and say that we want to have a certain level of minority and small and emerging business participation, and then each time we make sure that we go above that. But beyond that, we have our Building Futures program with our friends in organized labor, where we're taking people from poverty to the middle class, and that's great too. But at the end of the day, and then in our economic development department, we did some small business projects or programs to help with small minority small business loans earlier this year. But the white Americans and white businesses have had an advantage for 400 years. This country and this system has been set up to advantage whites for 400 years. And, now here we are in 2020, it's about time that we made sure that minority businesses and minority entrepreneurs and minority individuals have the same economic opportunities as their white counterparts. Because if if folks don't have the economic opportunity, then they're never going to be able to be able to make it. So we've got to be able to give people the same opportunities. And so,
we're doing it. I mean, I really do. I know we got to close out, Juan, but we're doing it. I really feel like Franklin County we started a new chapter here locally in this conversation. We started, we declared racism as a public health crisis, but it spurred a level of conversation that needed to happen. And so while we illustrated with, that declaration meant a lot for us because it was our value declaration, quite frankly. And I can remember the tears and emotion when we were passing it. But I think a lot of that has transferred and transpired a number of conversations beyond Franklin County that matter. And so I'm really excited about our progress in Central Ohio. I just want you to know that we are committed and we continue to work on your behalf to make Franklin County a great place to live, work, and raise a family. This has been another conversation with your Commissioner, Kevin Boyce, a brotherly conversation, and sisterly too. We got our sister here, about health, wealth, and race right here in Franklin County. And I'm so glad all of you joined us today for another wonderful conversation. Hopefully, I'll see you again next week, same time, same place. See you.